Every single event rental business in the world needs to have this one thing on their website. I don't care what anybody tells you. If you don't have this one thing on your website, you will fail. All right, that was a very dramatic intro, but this is how important this is to have. If you guys didn't know, I was in Colombia for 2 weeks, so now we are officially back. As you guys can tell, I brought a hat back with me. I love to have hats, and this one will be on a lot of videos coming forward. But anyways, let's get straight to the point of this video. You guys need to make sure that your website is functional. One way to make sure that your website is functional is to make sure that it answers all the questions that the customer might have, all right? You have a catalog section. They don't know what your event setups look like. Guess what? Your website needs to have a gallery section where you can show your previous work. Oh, but I haven't done any previous work. Guess what? Google is full of images that let you use them for a cost, okay? You can pay $2, $3 and use a stock image of what your event will look like, okay? So your website needs to be functional and the point where customers understand what it is you do, what products you offer, and what it looks like, okay? Your website has to be functional. That is what I mean when I say this. And one more thing to make your website extremely functional, and the one thing that every single website for your event rental business needs to have, is a way for the customer to submit a quote request or an estimate request. This is very, very necessary because people aren't just going to call you and be like, hey, I want to give you my business. No, that's not how it works. What they're actually going to do is reach out to multiple different event rental businesses and get different estimates from them, all right? Because at the end of the day, all they want is a deal. And depending on what that deal looks like is what's going to determine if they choose you or they choose a competitor. But guess who will definitely not get chosen? Those of you that don't have a way to request a quote on your website. That is when you're going to fail so bad that you're going to wish you didn't start your event rental business. It literally makes no sense to have this business and not have a way to submit a quote request. So I'm going to show you my website here because I'm a nice person and show you exactly what it is that I have on my quote request form and why it is that it's so important. So when you guys are on my website, which I'm going to blur out some information because I don't need people from India reaching out to me trying to sell me stuff, okay? So I blurred out some of the information so you guys don't know what my business is, all right? Anyways, on the very top on my bar here, you guys will see that it says request a quote. And it has an arrow pointing right down to where it says request a quote. Now, I know. Why is it that I do this? Is it really obvious why I do the arrow pointing down to request a quote? It's very simple. I want people to understand that this is where they can request a quote. A lot of people are going to go to your website. They don't want to have to guess around and try and do a scavenger hunt completely through your site to try and get a hold of you or to get the answer to their question, So it's very simple for my website to just see that there's an arrow pointing down at request a quote. Very simple to do. You guys make it very obvious as to where this is. Do not hide this on your website. All right, so moving down on the request form. These are questions that you need to make sure you have answers to, okay? And if you notice, a lot of these fields have an asterisk mark, okay? And before I talk to you about the fields and the different categories that I have on here that people can choose from, let's talk about why it's so important to have this form. Well, first off, the form is here as a gateway for you guys to build a sell, okay? For you guys to build rapport, for you guys to understand what the customer's needs are. That is what this form is for, okay? It's not here just to look cute. You guys need to make sure your form is functional and to the point. I don't have a bunch of blah, blah, blah on here of things that don't make sense, okay? Everything on here is very to the point and it lets the customer understand what it is they're filling out, okay? So let's go on to the field. The first field here is your name. So obviously I'm asking the customer for their name. This helps me understand who they are, okay? And as you can see, a lot of these fields have an asterisk mark next to them, which means it's required. They can't even move past this point if they don't fill it out. So the first one is providing their name. Then they need to provide their email address. Why exactly am I asking for their email address? Well, guess where you're gonna send the quote, the estimate, once you complete it. You're gonna send it to their email address. But you're not doing that just yet, okay? Because as I said, this quote request form is just a funnel. It's a way, it's a gateway for you guys to reach the customer, okay? So before you go and send the estimate out, there's one thing you need to do before you do that. And I'm going to tell you that here in a moment so it all makes sense. The next thing you're going to ask for is the phone number, okay? You need the phone number because you can text, you can call, and you'll have their phone number. Once you have their phone number, the next thing you want is the event address. Where is this event going to take place, all right? The reason you want the event address is because if it's in Europe and you live in the United States, obviously you can't do the event, okay? If the event is in Phoenix, Arizona, and you live in Atlanta, Georgia, you obviously cannot do the event. There are so many quote requests that I get that are in different states that if I didn't have the address, I would be wasting my time completing an estimate for an event I can't do, okay? So the address is very important. Now pay very close attention. When you have these 4 fields filled out by the customer, you know if you have a very good lead, okay? Because no one is just gonna voluntarily give you all this private information for you to send them an estimate if they're just messing around with you, okay? So this again is why you need a quote request form. You need to have this on your website. It doesn't matter how much you want to fight it. It doesn't matter if you don't want to do it, if you're lazy, whatever. If you want to have an event rental business, you need to have a quote request form. And this is just the beginning as to why it's so important to have it, okay? So this is, again, a gateway for you to be able to build rapport. It's a gateway for you to build a sale, and you understand if a customer is being legit or not, okay, when they provide all of this private information. Now, moving down to the type of event, okay? The type of event is important because you need to understand what it is that the customer is trying to host. If they're hosting a wedding, you understand that they're going to want to go all out, okay? If they're hosting a graduation party, you know they're going to want just the basics so that they can host their event. They're not going to want to go all out like they would with a wedding, okay? So you can kind of understand where the customer's mindset is when they choose what type of event it is, okay? Because a festival is going to be completely different than a wedding. In a festival, they want to have a lot of a certain equipment, okay? Either 10 tents, they'll have 300 chairs, whatever it is, festivals will be a lot different than a wedding. So you need to know what the type of event is that this customer is going to host, okay? The next thing you need to know is how many guests they're going to have. Believe it or not, people do not understand how big the tents are that you guys provide, okay? So, for example, if someone says that they have 30 people coming to an event and they request a 40 by 80 tent, guys, I already understand that they don't know the basic size of a tent, okay? They're not gonna need a 40 by 80 tent for 30 people. I guarantee it, okay? Unless they're doing something completely out of this world, they will be okay with only a 20 by 20 tent, okay? So this is something else that's crucial, knowing how many guests are gonna be at the event, because that's also going to help you build more rapport. When you go and contact the customer and tell them, hey, you're actually going to need a 20 by 20, not a 40 by 80, they're going to see that you're not trying to play them dirty. That you're actually recommending them the proper size for their event. And they're going to take that as a way of trusting you. And the more trust you develop with your customers, the better the relationship will be and the easier it's going to be to make the sale. Okay? Now, the event date is also very important. You need to know when this event is taking place. Because if you have a calendar, if you have an organizer, or whatever it is, you guys need to know exactly how much equipment you have going out that day already, and if you're able to even cover that event at all. And if you don't have the equipment, how much time do you have to acquire that equipment so that you can actually make the event happen, okay? So these first few fields up here, it's very important to have these answered, okay, up front. Everything else really just falls into place, okay? It becomes a lot easier to make the sell, okay? You want to book as many events, you guys need to have these basic questions answered. You're not just going to be shooting in the dark anymore. You're going to have concrete answers to your questions. You need to know exactly what it is you're doing and why you're doing it, okay? And what it's going to take to make that event happen, all right? Now, moving down to the equipment selection. Notice that I don't have absolutely everything I have in my inventory here on the quote request. Why? Because I know most people don't care about the add-ons until the very end, okay? So in the equipment selection, all I need to know is if they want a tent, if they want tables, chairs, linens. Those are the main things that people are going to rent. Everything else is an add-on, okay? So these things here, they get answered yes or no, And depending on what they answer, then they have other choices. So if I say yes to the tent, guess what? Now they have a drop down that shows the sizes of the tents, okay? Or if they want to put something else, they can do that, and then they can fill in the blank, okay? But let's say for this event, they want a 20 by 20. They selected, and it's selected, all right? Now, moving down to the quantity, how many of them do you want? Let's say they want two 20 by 20s. Boom, it's filled out. What kind of surface is it? Is it gonna be on grass? Is it gonna be on concrete? Is it asphalt? Depending on which one of these surfaces they select will determine what kind of anchoring method you're going to need, okay? So if they say grass, you're going to use your stakes. If they say concrete, you're either going to use stakes or you're going to use water barrels or weighted concrete. So these are very simple things. Something else they're able to select along with the tents is if they want sidewalls or not, okay? But none of this unlocks unless they answer yes to a tent, all right? So if I put no, all of that disappears. This is what I mean by having a functional website. It is easy to navigate. You understand what the customer wants, the customer understands what they're filling out, and they're not lost in the process, okay? Or lost in the sauce. Make it very simple, guys, okay? I put yes, and there's drop-down menus. It's that simple, okay? Every answer has a different outcome, all right? So I put no, it disappears. If they want tables, for example, they hit yes. They have all the different size tables here. Now, I'm gonna let you in on a very, very big secret. So come here. If you don't have the equipment, still put it down as if you had the equipment. Listen, if you don't have the equipment, still put it down as if you did have the equipment. For example, I don't have 48-inch round tables, but guess what customers do? They select 48-inch round tables because they don't know how big the tables have to be under the tent, okay? Or to be in their living room. They don't understand the different sizes and what they really do. So when they select 48-inch round tables, when I call them and I talk to them, I tell them that I only have 60-inch round tables. And guess how many customers actually push back on this and cancel their whole request because I don't have 48-inch round tables? Boom, 0. But guess what? If they don't see 48-inch round tables as an option here, guess what they will do? They're going to go to the competitor and they're going to submit a request there because they do have it on their website, even if they don't have it, okay? If you think event rental businesses don't do this, even at the larger scales, then you guys are just setting yourself up for failure, okay? 48-inch round tables, I don't have them, but I do have 60-inch round tables, and they still work just as good.
Hi, guys.
All right, baby. Hey, get a snack for you and Isa, okay? All right, guys, so my daughter just got home from school, so I got to finish this video. Now, if you guys understand this very simple concept, I'm telling you, you're going to dominate this game, okay? Because at the end of the day, this is just a game. You need to understand how to play the game. Most customers don't know the difference between 48-inch, 60-inch, and 72-inch. All they care about is it looking good at their event and sitting their customers, all right? That's it, point blank. And it goes with any equipment that you have in your inventory. Because guess what? If you select yes on my tent, I don't have a 40 by 100 yet. I'm not gonna buy a 40 by 100 for what? Okay, that's why it's so important to understand how many guests they're actually gonna have. Because if they say they have 100 guests coming and they ask for a 40 by 40, which I don't have, I'm gonna tell them that a 20 by 40 or 20 by 60 is just enough, because it is. Okay, you can fit up to 100 guests in a 20 by 40 tent. All right, if you know how to set it up properly. So understand why it is that you're asking these questions. Understand why it is that you have the equipment listed on here in the first place, because again, it is all a way for you to make a sale. And the customer's not going to get angry with you when they understand that you're helping them out. When they see that you're actually answering their questions, they're going to forget about the fact that you don't have a specific size for them. They don't care about that. All they care about is that their event looks the best that it can for their date, okay? For their event need. That's all they care about. Now, continuing on down the list, I need to know if they want chairs, if they want linens, what size linens they want, okay? What kind of color they want. And also, guess what? You need to know how they heard about you. And notice one thing on this quote request. Every single field is required to be filled out, because I want to know. And if you want a estimate from my company, you're going to answer the questions that I'm asking you, because I need to know this information so that it can be a lot easier to contact you and know what I'm going to tell you in the first place, okay? Now, something else that's very important for you guys to ask on your quote request is how they heard about you, okay? Was it on Google? Was it because your delivery truck is wrapped and it has your company logo on it and they snapped a quick picture? Is that why they heard about you? Is it because their friends of a friend recommended you and now you understand that word of mouth is better for your business? Is it because you have a post on Facebook that you put a few weeks ago and it finally reached the right person? You need to understand why they heard about you and how they heard about you, because that's going to help you adjust your marketing strategy, okay? You need to ask this question. It's very important. And notice that most of these fields are required to be answered, okay? If they don't answer these fields, guess what? They cannot submit the quote request. So they have to answer something no matter what, okay? If it's yes, if it's no. Now, at the very bottom of this form, you guys will see that it has add-ons, okay? This is where I have my add-on selection. And there's a reason why it's at the very bottom of the form. Because the most expensive and the most requested items are at the top, which are the tents, tables, chairs, linens. Everything else is just an add-on. It's a, oh yeah, by the way, do you have this kind of item, okay? That's what this is. Add-ons should be just that. And guess what you're going to ask the customer when you actually talk to them? Hey, do you guys need a portable bar? Or do you need a stage? Or do you need dance floor? Okay, that is how the conversation is going to go. And if you guys want me to make a video on how to answer these questions or how to ask questions on the phone call, I can make a video on that too, because there is a way to sell these things so that you guys can make the most profit possible, okay? For example, I'll give you one example, all right? And I'll let you go. Listen, if someone wants a tent and their event is going to go into the evening time frame and they don't have lights already selected as add-ons, guess what you're going to ask them? Hey, do you guys need string lights? They're going to be like, oh, you guys have lights? Yes, ma'am, we do. Or yes, sir, we do. And there you go. Boom, you tack on the lights. That is how add-ons work. You don't want your add-ons to be at the top of the page, because this is an, oh, yeah, by the way, do you have this kind of item? Remember that. That is literally how the customer is going to think. They're not going to think, oh, I need a cooler from the very beginning of the quote. They're not. So add-ons go at the bottom. The most important items go at the top: tents, tables, chairs, linens. Boom. You have a functional website. You have an actual quote request that will answer questions. You have your way to make a sell, because everything you need to sell them something is answered for you already. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call them. And this leads me to the final point of this video. Do not send the quote request or the estimate until you speak to the customer. Do not send the estimate or the quote request. Don't send it back to them via email until you speak to them on the phone or you text them directly, okay? And you get a response. Why do you do this? Well, again, they're going to be shopping around for the best price. So if they're sending out 10 different emails asking for quote requests and you send it back to them, guess what they're going to do? Oh, yeah, they send it back, yada, yada, yada. They read it, boom, they forget about it. And that's it. Now, if you actually call them and you get them on the phone or you text them and they reply, guess who they're not going to forget? They're not going to forget you. And guess where that puts you on the list? That puts you on the very top, or at least close to the top. Because a lot of these people that own event rental businesses, they don't want to talk to people on the phone. They just think that sending out the quote request is all they need to do. No, you can't do that, okay? That's not how you operate your business. You need to make contact with the person right away. And you go over the quote request with them on the phone. Because if they ask you this one question, you already know you got it locked down. Hey, so how exactly can I reserve this equipment? Boom, you got them. That's it. That's all you need. Then you can go on and collect their payment method and be done with it. Or send them the email so that they can make their deposit. And then explain to them, hey, you have a DocuSign coming to you. And boom, you have them locked in on an event. An event that you wouldn't have secured if you just sent out the quote request. Okay, if you just sent them the estimate that they asked for without talking to them first. Because they're just going to put you in the back burner and maybe remember you. Okay, they might remember you. But if you call them and you talk to them, they will remember you, okay? So do not just send these out as soon as you finish them. Now, if you try it at least 2 times where you call them or text them and you still don't get a response, at that point, then you know what? Just risk it and send it out as an email and they might get back to you, okay? But if you get them on the phone or if you get them to text you back, guys, it's almost more than 50% chance that you're gonna get that booking because they're gonna remember you as building the rapport with them. They're gonna remember that you were the one that answered their questions. You didn't play them dirty. You didn't scam them, okay? As soon as they submitted their personal information, you actually reached out to them and spoke to an actual real person. And that's how all this works, okay? I don't care what anybody tells you. You need to understand how to make your website functional. And by making the website functional, you will secure more bookings. Whew. All right. I might need a margarita after that. By the way, I was going to record a lot more stuff for you guys in Colombia, but guess what I did? I destroyed my drone, and I actually got it fixed, okay? I used some super glue, and I fixed it. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. That way we can keep growing this community. I really hope you guys found some value today and that you guys can go out there and dominate your event rental business journey or any side hustle, okay? This stuff can apply to any side hustle or business that you might have. You need to be intentional with what you're doing and you need to execute so that you can keep building your financial freedom. Without further ado, guys, I appreciate you watching and I'll see you on the next video.